Hello, I'm Dr. Maury Markman from City of Hope. I know the last two sessions have been difficult. This one will not be easy, but I would like to propose several thoughts to consider as options to begin to bend the staggering rise in costs of antineoplastic strategies, which are being used because they are increasingly effective. I note that a recent report from 2023 noted that total healthcare spending in the United States for 2023 was estimated to be $4.9 trillion, with a rate of growth of 7.5% over the preceding year. Viewed in a more direct manner, this translated to $14,570 per person in the United States. So think about that. Family of four, a family of five, $14,570 per person for that family, with a rate of increase of 7.5% per year. Options to consider when one is thinking about, obviously we have to think about outside of the oncology sphere, but this focus is on oncology, recognizing that anything one suggests here will be highly controversial and multiple parties will be affected, some of which will think the ideas are positive, others may think they're terrible. But here they are. One, modification of the current patent system, where the number of years of exclusivity will reduce. Now, remember, the patent system was developed a long time ago. The idea of exclusivity was developed a long time ago. So a modification of that. So it is not as long as it is now. And we modify the rules and the ability of patents to continue to be contested. Understand the legal process, understand the importance of this pharmaceutical companies, but to modify this to change the rules significantly for the duration of exclusivity. However, on the other side of the question, one would also significantly modify the requirements for drug approval, substantially reducing the costs required for drug development and potentially the cost of failing to be able to get a drug to market because of side effects or lack of effectiveness, reducing the cost, reducing the time of exclusivity, but also substantially modifying the approval process and study requirements such that drugs can be approved more broadly. And therefore, one could look at the cost effectiveness even at the time of approval, because drugs would have similar indications when they were approved. Cost versus benefit. Insurance companies, third-party payers, employers could look at that because the approval would be broader and more all-encompassing rather than waiting for a third and fourth and fifth indication down the line. One might be able to compare the drugs quickly. And finally, and very critically, the encouragement, if not the absolute requirement, for the conduct of simple but very large real-world studies conducted by the academic communities, but critically the community groups, paid for by health insurance industry, including the government, comparing commercially available drugs for various indications that will then permit the reliable estimates of clinical value versus the cost among products. At some point, getting close to what one thinks about one buys a variety of products. An expensive car, is it worth the cost to you? You need a car? Yeah, absolutely need healthcare, absolutely need these things. But what about the relative cost versus value? And last but not least, piloting novel strategies to look at risk sharing. Pilots to see about a new drug comes along, consider the idea that the drug will be given, the third party payer will pay for, will say it's okay. If the several cycles are given and there's no benefit to the patient, one would have to figure out how would one calculate this. One would have to figure out how to measure this. But again, the idea was that if the drug didn't work, that risk was assumed and accepted by the pharmaceutical sponsor, manufacturer, the health insurance plan, the employer would not pay for that drug. But if the drug was active, and again, this would all have to be figured out how you define that, and the drug was given for a year, 2 years because of its effectiveness, then that in fact would be paid by that third party, by that employer, etc. Again, this is a concept. It would have to be worked out in great detail for individual drugs, but it's a way of sharing that risk. Again, there are no easy answers here. But in my opinion, we absolutely need to begin to actively explore alternative finance options to create a situation where investment in novel therapeutics and diagnostics is encouraged. We want newer strategies. We want better drugs. We want safer drugs. We want more effective strategies. But we cannot be in a situation where cancer patients and their families are driven into bankruptcy in the process of care. And I thank you for your attention.